You're reviewing Conversations on Conflict Management, a conversation with one of the world's leading researchers and authorities on conflict management, Dr. Afzal Rahim. In this conversation, we want to talk about conflict management design and some of the issues there. So what would be the main lesson on conflict management design? And then we'll drill down a little bit on that.
The conflict management design, this is a design at the macro level. Now, there is micro level design, by the way. For example, it has been found that each style is appropriate depending on situations. Okay, for managers, for supervisors, they should think about if you want to fire a subordinate and you have done all the right things, you can use dominating style, that this is over. But that's micro level. Macro level is you are trying to use integrating style, some obliging style, and compromising style, these three, and rest of the two don't use it. So there will be a positive organizational climate for managing conflict.
So we're tying some things together here
Yes.
from the earlier conversations where we talked about these management styles, dominating, avoiding, compromising, for instance, and also talked about substantive and effective conflict. So the design has to take these into account, I assume.
Yes, the substantive conflict, as I said, a moderate amount of substantive conflict is functional. There will be a low intensity conflict throughout the whole organization, and General Electric is like that. There are 4 learning organizations according to Business Week, and GE is one. Their conflict will never end, but it is substantive conflict. There are some politics at the top, who is going to get CEO position, I understand that, but they are very good in what they do. They concentrate on substantive conflict. Like General Electric does not want A- product. They are making money, but they will discard it. They will go for A+ product. And that's what I'm talking about. If you have substantive conflict and you try to resolve that, it will lead to positive outcomes.
Now, one thing that came up in an earlier conversation, and we didn't spend any time on it, was the kind of conflict such as transforming and masquerading conflict. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Actually, there is a mixture of substantive and process conflicts. Substantive and affective conflict. And one is transforming conflict. It's like, I observe these things in our meetings. The meeting starts with a good agenda, discussion is going well, but a couple of people started asking questions. They were not very articulate, and they disrupted the meeting. So substantive conflict degenerates to affective conflict. And some people walk away from the meeting, they are hurt and things like that. So if substantive conflict degenerates to affective conflict, it is called transforming conflict.
So it's a change. It's conflict that's changed.
It is changed.
So it started as a possible positive, and then it degenerates into this affective conflict. How do you stop that?
We need leadership.
Okay.
Leader should intervene. That no, this is not what we are discussing. He or she should bring the meeting to order and discuss the agenda, and not go into something else. We should not go to a tangent somewhere. No, we don't want to do that. So leadership.
So the leader who's using emotional and cognitive intelligence is bringing us back to substantive conflict.
That's right.
And keeping us away from the other.
There is another conflict, another type of conflict, process conflict. Oh, masquerading conflict.
Yeah, masquerading.
Masquerading conflict is, actually politics is there. You are trying to hurt somebody's feelings, but you are pretending that you are talking about substantive conflict, but what you did is affective conflict. You did question someone's integrity, or you showed disrespect to a certain person, So that is masquerading conflict, and it is there. People attack others and they disguise their true feelings.
So it's a two-faced kind of thing. It's insincere.
Yes.
Insincere, and so they're talking substantive, but they're really coming after the individual.
Actually, if you go deep into it, if you videotape the conversation, they will say, hey, this is not substantive conflict anymore. This is affective conflict. And there is a big challenge for humanity to remain focused on substantive conflict and not allow, affective conflict. And he said, who should control it? The parents should help the children learn about this. And in organizations, of course, the supervisor should be trained in conflict management because they don't know. But after training, we find that supervisor is doing a lot better job. So we don't need any affective conflict or emotional conflict. People should be rational. They can be a little bit emotional elsewhere.
Good point. So in other words, people may need a social or an affective outlet, but we're talking about in meetings and in policy.
Yes. You should not disrupt the organizational functioning through your affective conflict. And there is one left, process conflict. Process conflict is not good or bad, okay? But in a large organization, in a manufacturing company, there are processes. And sometimes, like the material did not come on time, so the machines are waiting, and that is the process conflict. It has to be minimized. And I give this example to my students that you are selecting your courses that you will take in fall, and you have process conflict. Sometimes you like a course and that is full, and another thing, there is time conflict, so you are not happy with it, but university should try its best to minimize process conflict. And just-in-time concept is there. It is going to manage process conflict. The approved parts suppliers will bring the parts about 15 minutes before they are going to be used. But if they bring the parts half an hour earlier, there is no space to keep those. So that's one of the ways, that's not the only way to minimize process conflict.
So good planning, and a lot of companies are using just-in-time, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, it came from the Japanese, but a lot of companies are using it. Especially in manufacturing, it has to be there.
Now, one thought is this idea, the contingency approach to conflict management. And I wonder what contingencies there might be.
Okay. Yeah, Bob, that's a very good question. Contingency approach to conflict management. Like supervisors, they can use all 5 types of styles of conflict handling, but it has to match with situation. If the problem is complex, you go for integrating.
No.
If it is, for example, opposite of integrating is avoiding, when do you use avoiding? If it is a trivial matter, just ignore it. But some people are paying attention to those, and they are ignoring some other important things. And I give an example.
That's an excellent point. There are people who will.
Exactly, Bobby, you have articulated fairly. There are a lot of things we can ignore, but the organization will do better with that, okay? And supervisors don't have enough time, so they should not waste time on trivial things, avoiding. Obliging is when you know that your boss is correct, don't create any more problems. A scientist has come and said that this is the way it works. We have to depend on that scientist or the lawyers or the doctors, and you don't. It is obliging. The doctor has said this, and you agree with it. Okay, you just do that. But if the other party is wrong, and you are trying to keep the other party pleased, that is a serious problem. That it is happening now in politics.
So needing to know when to do the right thing when. Back to, I think, what sometimes you call socially intelligent leadership.
Yes.
Needing to know when to make what decision and when to engage conflict and when to avoid it, for instance.
Yes, the good leaders know. If they received some training, that would help. It will be clear in their mind as to what they have to do. Sometimes the conflicts are complex, and they should know that you should go for integrating, and if there is no other way to solve it, go for compromising. After that, there is no other strategy, by the way.
So we're getting some really good advice on handling conflict. Thank you for viewing Conversations on Conflict Management. I'm Bob Hatfield.
Thank you very much.